Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Sheryl Carroll. She's joining us live from Australia. She's an integrative health practitioner and coach, and she's passionate about supporting women to master their health so they can step into their full potential. Welcome to the show, Sheryl.
Thank you so much. I'm so pleased to be here with you.
Same here, same here. Very happy to have you on the show. And welcome to the show. Welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from, from what we are going to talk about. We are talking about recovering from burnout. We'll also talk about a few things along with that. So my first question to you, Sheryl, is to understand what is this burnout thing. Though a lot of people have heard it, they know they've heard it, they have seen people talking about it, but how does this burnout look like? How do I know if I am facing burnout? Is there a symptom to it? Is there a condition to it? So that people who are having this particular thing can actually know that yes, this needs to be addressed.
Yeah. So I think really what we're talking about here is dysregulation in the nervous system. So when you've had a lot of stress going on in your life, whether it's physical stress, so poor sleep. So my situation was, there was this perfect storm of poor sleep because I had 2 young kids. I was working a full-time job in 3 days a week with a lot of pressure on me. And at the same time, I was trying to keep up with the lifestyle that I was used to. So I continued to see my friends, go out, exercise, do intermittent fasting, all the things. So really what was going on is that my system was stuck. It was in this sympathetic part of the nervous system. So the fight part of the nervous system. And there was no time in my life for me to drop into recovery. So I was on the whole time, when in reality, our bodies have been designed to mostly be in the calm part of the nervous system, the parasympathetic part of the nervous system, and to respond to a stress or a trigger. Like we used to have to run from the tiger, for example. Those were the only stresses we used to have back in the day when our bodies were designed with the stress response. So, in those days, we'd run from the tiger and we would get to safety and we'd recover. And we would then drop back into the calm part of the nervous system, which is where all our body systems work really well. Our digestion is online, our hormones are going well, our moods are stable. And so to your question around, well, what does burnout look like, or what does this nervous system dysregulation look like? So when you're stuck in this on part of the nervous system, the sympathetic part of the nervous system, everything is very heightened. So you feel like it's like you are just waiting for something to happen. So you feel very on edge. So anxiety is a huge thing that comes with that. It dysregulates our blood sugar levels, our hormones can go crazy. Our gut goes offline when we're in that sympathetic part of the nervous system. So it can really bring about symptoms that people struggle with these days, whether it's, gut issues are huge these days. I'm not sure if that's something you see amongst, people that you interact with. And so much of that is actually at the root of that is really because our bodies don't feel safe to do what they're meant to do when we're in like normal mode. And then when you have been in that on state for so long, our bodies get to a point where they can't do it anymore. And so then you end up almost being in an off state. You get stuck in the parasympathetic part of the nervous system and then lack motivation, lack get up and go. You just don't have the energy to move. So it's really what happens when it comes to, burnout or adrenal dysfunction is that the body ends up not being able to move seamlessly between the two parts of the autonomic nervous system, and we struggle to settle back into a place of balance, which is where our bodies like to be, in a normal environment.
Right, right, Cheryl. Let us understand it a bit better in much more simpler terms. When we want to move to the calm part of our system, that is actually our system craves for peace. Am I right? That is
Yes,
what,
yes, yes.
but yeah, why don't people talk about peace? They all talk about achieving something. And then let's talk about the earlier, the fight or flight. You see a tiger, you run away, and then you be in peace, in
Mm,
that calm space. What is the tiger here? Who is the tiger here? And why are we so forced to be, sitting next to the tiger all the time? Why can't we run away? Why don't we run away? I know what I means I know the compulsions here, but I want to hear from you, so that how do we get out of that mode, so that we go to the peaceful part of our whole system that has been designed that way. Help us
yeah.
understand in as simple terms, so that people can understand why to unnecessarily have anxiousness, why to have unnecessary, just a unnecessary run towards so-called happiness. Why not peace, which we are actually designed for?
Mm. So our modern day world, so to put it very simply, so all of us have what I like to refer to as the stress bucket. So we all have a certain amount of capacity for stress, whether that's physical stress, like I mentioned, anything that causes physical harm or physical stress on our body. So it can be, the gut issues, it can be poor sleep, it can be eating the wrong foods, not moving enough, it can be a virus. All of these things add stress to our stress bucket. And then the other layer of the stress is the mental and emotional stress, which is our perception of an event. So if somebody has grown up in a household where there was a lot of shouting and a lot of potentially violence, their perception of certain events later on in life, events are going to cause them more stress because they perceive an event to be more dangerous to their nervous system. So perception of an event which causes us stress, mental and emotional stress, is really determined based on what our overall load is. Like if you've got aging parents, and then you've got work pressures, and then you've got young kids that are just very demanding, then things end up seeming more stressful because your stress bucket is now overflowing. And so that's really where we get to these days, is that there's so many different stresses on our system. So we end up in this place of just overwhelm, overload in all kind of areas. And that's when there's this cascade of symptoms that people start to feel not good in their bodies, not good in their minds, and then can cause, as I mentioned, this anxiety, etc. And I think the other point to note, which is what you'd mentioned, is that people don't necessarily always take enough time to connect to that peace, to connect to that recovery, which in our modern day world, that's what we have to do if we want to stay performing at a high level. So yes, we can do all the things and want to achieve and everything, but it's really important to couple that with enough recovery and couple that with intentional nutrition. We can't expect our bodies to perform well if we're not nourishing it from the inside as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. Why I mentioned peace was, that uh, the difference of approach is, and I nowadays a lot of people understand it, that people think that on a weekend you need to go out. Fine, that is culturally, in a lot of cultures it is fine, but in this part of the world, on a weekend it means you will have less work or no work in terms of your office, so you
Mm,
can relax. You don't necessarily have to go out or have to show off to go out, that okay, I went to this place, that place, or put pictures on Instagram or whatever it is. Just be at peace with yourself, be with the people you want to be, And wherever it is, home is where the heart is. And so you are just at peace with yourself. And many a time that is the difference I find, that when people ask, okay, it's Friday, where are you going? You don't need to go anywhere else. You just, and when you go, it is not, there not such a big deal about it. You just go, you take your car and you just go. Or anyway, but when you are at peace with whatever you are doing, that gives your body a huge amount of, recovery period. And then you are ready to be in that mode, but to actually, get down to fighting the tiger, because
Yes.
the weekend is going to weekday is going to begin. Why is it that we don't understand that our body needs that peaceful state of mind? Is it that some people are always uh, have been designed that way, that they always crave for something, that adrenaline has to keep on pumping and they feel good about it, and some people are not designed that way. Some people are designed to be very peaceful. That is why, many people are a bit more laid back. Others are but more active. How do we calibrate these two things that the nature has, put designed us individually as? And second part is that in terms of, uh, anxiety, stress, are individuals, why are some people more prone to it? Why are some people, very much immune to it almost? Is it about the immune system? Is it about something else? You are a health practitioner, health coach. Give us some answers so that we understand our own bodies better.
So I think there were a lot of questions in there. So if I don't answer everything, just take me back to
No
them. So I
problem.
think
Right.
the first response to your question is that we don't, like, every form of validation is around achievement. It's about doing, and we almost get addicted to external validation of ourselves through achievement, or, and that comes from how we were brought up, love languages from our parents, all of those sorts of things. And no one ever gets prizes for taking time for recovery. An athlete will get a prize for coming first in the race, but actually, when you are an athlete, targeted recovery is a very key part of the protocol. And
Right.
that's, the messaging and the languaging I'm trying to bring to all of my clients, is that if you expect, like, we're all athletes in life because we all want to perform well in the areas we choose to, whether you are, a stay-at-home mom, or you're retired and you're a grandparent and you want to show up well. It's all around treating yourself like an athlete, which means for giving yourself enough recovery in the whole process. And I think the other thing is that people struggle to say no. There's this fear of missing out. And so people want to say yes because, there's a whole herd mentality. You don't want to be rejected from the herd. You want to be accepted. So there's a real boundary piece that comes into truly looking after yourself and self-care, because you can't do it all. You cannot do it all. And it's a real, and I notice, because I work mostly with midlife women, and it's very hard for them to say no because they're not used to it at all, and they end up burnt out, overweight, not feeling, brain fog, fatigued, all the things. And actually, it's trying to unwind all their thought processes and, the negative chatter in their heads that come about when, they're worried about all of a sudden saying no to things. So that's a very big piece of the puzzle as well. And the question around why do some people suffer with anxiety over others? So yes, there's definitely a genetic, there's people will have genetic predisposition to kind of mental health disorders, but there's always the environment, so how somebody lives their life, their mindset practices, how much recovery they put into their lives, how they eat, etc. That's going to, our genes don't determine our outcomes, but if we don't support our bodies, for the genetic predispositions that we have, we can then turn these genes on, which then can make us more susceptible as well. So, the way I see it is that, people end up suffering with anxiety, depression when they've had this kind of perfect storm of stresses in their lives, whether it's started off with very poor sleep and then maybe, work's been very challenging and they got some negative feedback from work and they didn't have the resilience, like the mental resilience at that point to work through that and let it go. So they started to ruminate on, what was going on at work. That's very much what my story was as well, which I'm not genetically predisposed to anxiety, but when I suffered from burnout, I was incredibly anxious. And that was because I was so on edge because I wasn't sleeping enough. I was questioning everything I was doing, like any bit of feedback I got at work, I was freaking out. Meanwhile, I was perceiving everything to be threatening. So, I think it's, when it comes to managing our predisposition to these sorts of conditions, it's really about creating these, like a toolkit for yourself, which is all around, your mindset, what mindset practices can you utilize? And I love your point about the peace. It's what practices are you doing each day that is bringing peace to you, getting you out of your head, back into your body, into the present moment, because depression is when we're stuck in the past. Anxiety is when we're worried about the future. So those practices to bring you back, whether it's meditation, breath work, these are practices I encourage my clients to use all the way through the day so that you can keep taking stress out of the stress bucket. And then that just makes you more mentally and emotionally resilient and keeps the negative chatter out of the head as well.
Right, Sheryl. So, is it that, what about the gender thing here? Is it men are more prone to burnout or stress anxiety, or is it women? You work with a lot of women, so you will be able to tell much more deeply what are the things that different genders get stressed out or burnout over. Is it the same thing or different things? Because both have been designed differently by nature to complement each other. And nowadays there is a lot of equality, but that's a different issue. But how has nature designed us in terms of handling stress, anxiety, and burnout?
So if you think about, so women have been put on, women have been designed to procreate. So when we are in the childbearing years, we are less, like we just less resilient to stress, because if our bodies are under stress, then we're not in a good place to be able to bring a baby into the world. So then it creates hormonal dysregulation, which can bring about anxiety, depression. There are a lot of, for women in midlife, thyroid conditions are huge, and there's a huge link between depression and anxiety and underactive thyroid, or even an overactive thyroid as well. So women, just because of the fact that we need to be healthy and in a calm place in order to procreate, what I'm seeing is that, even when women move into the perimenopausal shift, that the changing hormones is another catalyst for anxiety, depression. It can really switch things because our brains are going through a real calibration or a recalibration as well. So it's a time that kind of shakes us all up and can bring about a lot of these issues in place. The other reason is that when our ovaries are deciding that they no longer want to work as we move towards menopause, we're handing over responsibility for the production of our sex hormones to our adrenal glands. So if our adrenal glands are overworked, if we're super, super stressed, then the adrenal glands can't pick up the slack and start producing the sex hormones that we need, that then plays into the whole mental health picture. So, to cut a long answer short, women, from what I see is that women are more predisposed to anxiety, depression because of our hormonal ups and downs as we go naturally through our 28-day cycle, and also as we move through these transitions in life. And with pregnancy, postpartum, perimenopause, menopause, etc. But then, not to say, I think that there've been a lot of men who have been suffering from mental health conditions, and there's been this real pressure cooker for all of us through COVID, now post-COVID. And I think women, like, this is very stereotypical, but women seem to be better at coming together to communicate and talk. And that's a way to kind of diffuse the feelings from your system, to feel that you are being supported. Whereas a lot of the men that I know that have suffered from mental health conditions, they feel a lot of shame for being this way, that it's a weakness, they can't ask for help, and then you suffering in silence, which just makes the situation worse. So, I do feel that there has been a big increase in the number of men also suffering from mental health conditions. And there is also the midlife shift for men, which is called andropause, which can also bring about, these feelings of, what am I doing now? What's my next step? Which can fuel some of that as well.
Absolutely. And that is where you need support from each other at every point in time. As I said, women may be anxious about things, but they also have a lot of calming effect on the men in their life.
Yes.
And that is the way nature has. And men, on the other hand, they may be suffering from whatever it is, but they bring that calmness to a woman's life in terms of, okay, at least he is there in terms of, giving any sort of whatever we want to, protection or feeling of that stability or whatever it is. Be that as it may, I want to understand from you, Sheryl, is in terms of recovering from such a burnout situation of stress and anxiety. Are there things which one can do and one should not do? Also, at the same time, I want to understand about inflammation you talk about, and you also call it as the root cause of all diseases. Help us understand. People generally, it's such a simple thing, but people do not actually understand inflammation in that sense, because I don't think it has any outwardly symptoms so that one can pinpoint it, but actually it works internally. Help us understand, if I am right on this or whatever it is, what is this inflammation thing all about, and a recovery process from burnout or stress or anxiety.
So there is a huge link between burnout and inflammation, because when we've got this nervous system that is dysregulated, that causes inflammation in the system. Everything's going a little bit haywire. So we potentially not absorbing all our nutrients. There's a bit of cell oxidation and cell damage going on. So that's actually driving up inflammation. So whether you're recovering from burnout, or you have an autoimmune condition, or you've got inflammation. So signs and symptoms of inflammation could be things like any skin issues, gut issues, sore joints, just pain, brain fog as well, anxiety, depression. These are all signs that you have a level of inflammation in your system. So there are various blood tests you can also do as well, which can highlight, something called C-reactive protein, shows you what your general levels of inflammation are. So there's some tests that you can do, but if you've got any of these symptoms, then you should just assume that you have some inflammation in your system that you should work on. And the way I like to coach my clients is to focus on signaling safety to the body. So I really, what I mentioned is, when we feel like we're under threat and we're, our nervous system's all over the place, then all we need to do is to be signaling safety through to our body by the lifestyle choices that we make. So that would be, and it's the basics of healthy living. So, it's like I always like to think of it of like this, the spiritual side of things, like really thinking about where you fit in the grander scheme of things. Where do you want to be? What is the person you want to be? How you want to show up? Because that like just knowing and having a good image of that person, a visualization of that person, can steer where you want to go. So if you're feeling burnt out, anxious, and you're feeling stuck, what I find to be so beneficial is visualizing, well, where am I going to? Who's this vibrant woman that I want to step into, or vibrant man, sorry, for your male listeners. And that's kind of the starting point. And then it's all around signaling safety to the nervous system through your daily routine. So having a morning routine, which is not waking up with an alarm, grabbing your phone, swigging a cup of coffee. It's all about setting your day up right with an intention, gratitude, feet on the ground, like really nourishing, connecting to that peace that I keep going back to because I love that word. And then through the day, connecting back into the breath, because when we're stressed, we breathe from our chest, and we actually need to be letting our bellies out and doing a big belly breath so we can get that, really oxygenate our systems. And, evening routine, closing off the day beautifully, focusing on what we have in our lives. So being grateful, that's really helps to get rid of all of the cortisol when we focus on, what we have in our lives. And then, eating a whole food diet, not just putting sugar into our mouths and, having all the coffee, all the alcohol, which people, self-medicate a lot when they're not feeling good in their bodies. So really intentionally nourishing your body through your food choices. Hydration is so important because dehydration is another stress on the body. Moving the body. So the basics, if you are very inflamed, your body's sore, actually moving your body can help to shift that. If you don't move, pain levels can increase significantly. I work with a physio who specializes in pain, and her recommendation to all my clients is just, you have to move your body, even if it's sore, just stretch a bit, walk if you can. Really, really important. And then focusing on the gut, detoxing your environment. Those are all kind of the basics to lifestyle.
Absolutely. Move your body and it will help you in so many things. Recently I read about a news report from the US that a lot of these new weight loss pills, they are so costly that some people have gotten down to do two jobs so that they can buy those pills,
Oh
and it is shocking. You just do the Google part. I hope I've read it correctly. And my first thought was, why do two jobs? Just if you are at least working 4 hours, just do one hour workout and it will take care of your weight. The rest 3 hours you can sleep. You don't need to do two jobs. One job should be enough. That is all peace is all about. But I guess we have forgotten about peace. We look at towards much more external issues, external ways of looking at even the basic things.
Yeah, because I think what happens is people get so far gone that they forget, or they don't know what healthy living looks like. I'll speak to some people and they're like, I think I eat quite healthily. And often what I find with women is that they're actually not eating enough at all. And I'm like, whoa, is that all you eat? They have like a banana for breakfast and then maybe like a piece of toast for dinner. Like, no, that's not nourishing your body. Like, no wonder your metabolism is going to slow down because it thinks there's a famine. So we have to start, like a lot of the women I work with, I'm actually supporting them to eat more rather than less, because they're holding on to so much weight because their body's scared that they're never going to eat again.
Absolutely. So doing something because a doctor has said, that is understandable. But self-medicating with things which you don't need, that needs to be, addressed in the proper manner by people themselves. Be that as it may, I'm sure there is a lot of things to learn from you, Sheryl. And so a lot of people would like to connect with you. And for those also who want to directly, engage with you professionally, what's the best way for them to do so?
Yes, of course. So my business name is Your Tiny Voice Health Coaching. So my website is ytvhealthcoaching.com, and I offer complimentary health strategy sessions for anybody who's interested in connecting and understanding where they're stuck in their health and how they can move forward. I have a YouTube channel with information, with videos on perimenopause, autoimmune, etc. So go on to that. I'm very active on Instagram and Facebook. So my Instagram is your_tiny_voice, and Facebook is YTV Health Coaching. So please come and connect with me. And yes, I would love to get connected with as many of you as possible.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you.